After 2 weeks of constantly using Haruta, learning all the techs with this character, all the combos, all the routes, I can safely say that this is the most fun character I've ever had playing. More fun than Prime Megami, more fun than Choso, more fun than Mekamaru. He's just so much more fun than all of those characters. I heard that ZZ was the one that designed this character and he absolutely cooked with the design. This character really resonates with me. Like, just look at him. That's my guy. So yeah, I hope y'all enjoy the guide. It's gonna start with the moveset first because I think that's most important with this character. Like, there's a lot of things you gotta know about his kit in order to use him most effectively. So rather than pausing a billion times during the ranked matches, which is probably gonna happen regardless, we'll start by going into detail with each and every one of his moves. So let's go ahead and get started with the first part of Haruta's kit, his M1s and his front dash. We aren't even starting with his moves first. With the sword on, Haruta has a regular uppercut and down slam string that both deal 14 damage. But different from other characters, his neutral M1 string actually ends in a little stab animation that deals 5 damage instead of 4 damage, letting his neutral M1 set deal 15 damage. And on the surface, this looks pretty appealing. I mean, who's complaining about 1 more damage? However, the issue here, and the reason why neutral M1 should be used a little more sparingly, is because his neutral M1 actually has less stun and less ragdoll time than every other character's neutral M1s. From what I've counted, it seems to be around 18 milliseconds of difference between the two. This is minuscule, but surprisingly notable in Haruta's game plan. For one, unlike every other character, you can't really loop your M1s after the knockdown. The lower amount of stun makes it so the opponent has a lot more wiggle room to try and attack you back while you're looping them. And the second small issue that this stun difference brings up is that Haruta kinda has to commit harder to the next option that he's doing afterwards. The two most common options after this neutral M1 is gonna be a front dash or a cheap shot. But you can't delay your cheap shot in any way before throwing the move out, or the combo becomes green. And if you mistime your front dash, you might hit the opponent as they're waking up and as they get their wake up immunity, instead of hitting them with Haruta's passive that lets them kick ragdolled opponents. But if the opponent has their evasive and they're wise with using it, you can't really do either of these moves. The front dash is punishable on hit, and cheap shot is reactable enough to try and punish. And like I said, you can't delay your cheap shot by dashing backwards to try and make it safe. So you really have to commit to this, and it's unsafe when you have to commit to it. This is why, unless your opponent doesn't have their evasive, I kind of advise against using this final hit of M1. But if they don't have evasive, you might as well go for it. It's an extra 1 damage, and you just take what you can get with this game. Let's talk about his front dash now. Like I've already stated, Haruta has a passive called Shoot that allows him to kick ragdolled opponents. From the Harutas that I've faced in ranked so far, and believe me, I've played a ton of ranked this week, I've noticed this is one of the more underutilized aspects of this character. This front dash holds a lot of value when it comes to both comboing and positioning with Haruta. This kick sends them respectably far and ragdolls them for a pretty long amount of time relative to how long you're actionable for. Most commonly, you're going to link this into a cheap shot, but if you don't have cheap shot available, you can also combo this into your trip as well. This is especially good if you're in your sword off mode. And in your sword on mode, if you slot this early into your sequence, you just get an extra free 4 damage in your combo that you wouldn't have gotten before. Very free value and a very potent combo tool that I don't see many talk about. Alright, now let's move on to the next move in his sword on kit. We're going to talk about Ambush now. With no ragdolled enemies around you, Ambush is a simple sword swipe that deals 12 damage and knocks down the opponent. If you're in the air when you use this move, you kind of lunge forward when you do it. This move is honestly pretty underrated and is extremely effective as a surprise option. It's quick, it's unblockable, and it combo starts. And the hitbox on this move is so gross too. It covers a huge radius in front of Haruta and it lasts an insanely long time. Overall, it's just a really solid attack. Ambush has a variant that you can use against grounded opponents, but after day 1 of using Yuta, I can count on one hand how many times I've actually used this variant. The variant of Ambush deals 10 damage and an additional 6 damage if you press the button again. The first stab is apparently a true ragdoll, and the subsequent 3 stabs will immediately lift the opponent up from their ragdoll. So my thoughts on this move: I really don't use this ever. I can really count on one hand the amount of times I've used this move. So first I'm going to say, in general, Ambush, like as a whole, is overshadowed massively by Ankle Cutter. And more specifically, the variant of Ambush where you stab the opponent, you will almost always want to be using Ankle Cutter over Ambush if the opponent is ragdolled. There's a few reasons for this. One, Ankle Cutter is completely safe. The range on Ankle Cutter is huge, especially compared to Ambush. The opponent is never going to be able to punish you, and even if they do try to punish you with an evasive, you can immediately dodge and get a miracle for free. One might say as a counter argument, oh, Ambush disables your ragdoll cancel, maybe you would want to do that instead. Disregarding the fact that the opponent could potentially react and punish you, you want your opponent to be able to use their evasive. You want them to waste that resource, so you can hit them with bigger combos later. Ankle Cutter allows you to safely continue your combo, while letting the opponent choose at any time to waste their evasive. The second reason is that any follow-up that Ambush has, Ankle Cutter will have the same follow-up. And so by choosing to use Ankle Cutter over Ambush, you're just gaining 2 extra damage. So the question becomes, why would you not choose Ankle Cutter in that scenario? The final reason is that there's more opportunities to use ankle cutter than there is to use ambush. We'll talk about this later, but you'll be entering sword off extremely frequently. Whether that's instantly entering sword off to try and punish someone for trying to M1 trade you, or perhaps you just used cheap shot. Whatever your reason for entering sword off mode is, ankle cutter just has so much utility, even over the aerial ambush or the neutral ambush. You'll find yourself using ankle cutter over all forms of ambush like all the time. Still though, I think at least the neutral ambush and the aerial ambush are very good moves. The grounded ambush isn't really that strong, but it's whatever. Let's move on to and talk about our next move now, which is Backstab. This move is an 8 damage poke, where the amount of stun depends on where you hit your opponent. If you hit it from the front, you and the opponent are basically set to neutral, with Haruta given a very slight advantage. This means if both of you are holding M1, the Haruta is going to win that trade, which is good because then you can get a miracle off of that. And by the way, the range on this move is pretty sizable. It's longer than an M1, so you're definitely able to surprise people with it. So if you use it sparingly, you can definitely hit some people off guard. But let's talk about the better and more interesting usage of the move. If you hit it from the back, Backstab stuns for way longer than you usually would. This lets you get nothing off. If you land Backstab within a combo, there's not really much you get off of it. I mean, an extra 8 damage in a combo is nice, but I'd rather just use High Time in that case. High Time, which is the sword off move in the Backstab move slot, deals a massive 12 damage and leads up into anything. So is this a similar situation to Ankle Cutter and Ambush? Nah, definitely not. To begin with, High Time is just nowhere near as good as Ankle Cutter. It's still a good move, but it just doesn't match the versatility of its friend. Trading horizontal range for vertical range is just not a good deal ever. Besides that though, you can get pretty easy M1 resets with Backstab. By delaying the Backstab, the combo becomes green, but you can M1 reset off of it if you land it. This is potentially huge value. And while High Time probably sees more use overall, Backstab is still very much in the game. Oftentimes I go games without even seeing myself use Ambush once. But with Backstab, there's a lot of value to be had there. It also just feels rewarding to hit the reset. Overall, an excellent move. The next move in Haruta's kit is shared between his sword on and his sword off states. Haruta's trip is a short range kick that deals 7 damage on ragdolled opponents and 11 damage on standing opponents. It's also able to disable ragdoll cancel if the opponent is moving when they get hit by it. This move is pretty unremarkable. It's not bad in the slightest, but there's really not much to mention. It's generally safe and works as combo filler basically any time during a combo. It true combos into every move in Haruta's kit that hits ragdoll except High Time consistently. It's also really good at annoying the opponent when they're trying to turtle up against your sword when you're in the sword off mode. It's super quick and there's literally no indication from when it starts up. Even if the opponent does end up blocking it, it still does its job extremely well by allowing you to bait the opponent into attacking back and then hitting them with a sword move. And while I usually don't deal with ults on this channel, you can use Trip to essentially cancel the momentum of anybody getting hit by your ultimate. You can also use Trip on a dead body multiple times to farm ultimate off of it too. Or maybe for some disrespect if you feel like that. The safe combo that I usually end up doing with Haruta is uppercut surfing into Trip and then using a cheap shot after dashing backwards. Uppercut surfing is ideal, but the move is still pretty safe even if you don't hit that. One more thing to mention, the move really has a surprising amount of vertical range. Use that information however you see fit. Now let's move on to the final move in Haruta's sword on kit. Cheap shot is a 7 damage projectile that transitions Haruta into his sword off kit. This move is good combo filler, but also it serves a really good function in setting up the sword right next to the opponent. When a ranked match starts, usually the first thing I do is just throw the sword right at the opponent. Whether my opponent blocks it or not, the more important part is that the sword is right next to them now. Most people react to the sword in two ways. Either they become hyper aggressive or they become super defensive. Either way, you as the Haruta, you're benefiting a ton from that. You're basically controlling how the opponent plays because people are so scared of the sword. If the opponent becomes super aggressive and tries to front dash at you, a dodge plus a trip is going to get you 2 miracles right away. And if the opponent chooses to play more passively, you can easily farm taunts off of them. Back to cheap shot though, it's very important that you pay attention to the range that the opponent is at, because the sword always goes a set distance and pierces through the opponent. This can be a little bit of a problem when you're trying to follow up off of your cheap shot. Like for example, if you're too close and you hit a cheap shot, you can't get a High Time or an ankle cutter off of it. Sometimes you can't even combo into dirty trick. This makes it really important to be very aware of the distance between you and the opponent. If you can keep that in mind, you'll find that cheap shot is probably the best sword on move that Haruta has. If you do find that the opponent is too close and you only have cheap shot available, a front dash is going to send them the perfect distance to combo extend off of. But make sure you don't miss, the move doesn't really have a big left-right hitbox. So that was the last of Haruta's sword on moves. As you can see, there's a lot of nuance and stuff when you talk about it. That just goes to show how much more unique this character feels to play than most other characters in this game. Now let's move on to his sword off kit. And the first thing we'll actually start with is not his M1s or his front dash or anything like that. We're going to start with his recall mechanic. To begin with, by pressing R, Haruta lets go of his sword and the sword will chase anybody who you hovered over. That means you can't actually enter sword off mode if you aren't hovering over an opponent. This is actually fairly significant because there's a lot of times where you might want to enter your sword off mode to like dodge and attack quickly, but you aren't hovering over the opponent at that exact moment, so you can't drop the sword in time. Or maybe you want to quickly drop it to use ankle cutter and trade with an M1 the opponent is doing. It's a lot more risky than it feels like it should be while doing this because of the fact that the taunt button and the dodge button are on your F key and your M1 key, respectively. This explanation might be a little bit convoluted, I'll try and get this out the best way that I can. But basically, if the opponent side dash M1s you and you intend to drop the sword in order to dodge it, if you fail to drop the sword, perhaps you weren't hovering over the opponent, your M1 is never going to beat out their M1. This kind of sounds weird to hear because if you predicted their side dash in, you might expect like maybe your M1 is going to be faster than theirs. But even if you predict and react to the opponent's actions, the active dodge frames on a sword off M1 isn't long enough to make it through the entire startup animation of any M1. This means that by necessity, you have to delay your dodge whenever you're predicting someone's dash in. So if what I mentioned earlier happens and you fail to drop your sword, your M1 will come out and it won't be fast enough to actually interrupt the opponent's M1 even if you did manage to predict them. This kinda sucks, but failing to drop the sword wouldn't be as big of an issue if your M1 key and your F key were swapped in your sword off mode. Because if this same scenario happened, you failed to drop your sword, your opponent dashes in, and instead you were able to press F to dodge, you'd be able to block the opponent's attack, regardless of if you were in the sword on or the sword off mode. I really hope that explanation makes sense. And in my own matches that I played over the past 2 weeks, I was really surprised by how many times I failed to drop my sword as Haruta. Hopefully some other Haruta players can relate to that. You might put forward the idea that maybe Haruta should be able to drop his sword if he wasn't looking at anyone, but I think that'd be too much, you know? Haruta already feels like a slippery eel to fight against, but being able to just drop your sword whenever you want to and then dodge whenever you want to, I think that's too annoying, even for a character meant to be annoying like Haruta is. Back to talking about his recall, there's a few more interesting things that you need to know about it. And the number one most important thing that you need to know about when using Haruta is the fact that picking up your sword has end lag attached to it. And this isn't no small end lag either. This is big end lag that you have to deal with every time you pick up the sword. When it comes to transitioning between sword off and sword on, this is the most important thing that you have to manage and you have to pay attention to every single time. If you pick up your sword in neutral and the opponent is knowledgeable about your character, they will punish you for it every single time. Personally, this is the only issue that I have with Haruta right now. Everything else about the character, whether it's his weaknesses or his strengths, these actually feel fine and they feel fun to play around. Versus this end lag that you get when you pick up the sword, it feels extremely clunky. There are some ways to play around it though. If your opponent knows about the character you're using, you can mix up the timing of when you pick up the sword by actually making use of the slidey nature of how the hand sword moves around. If you didn't know, the hand sword moves pretty fast, faster than a regular person, and it moves as if it's on ice all the time. Some intelligent players will try and time when the sword comes back to the Haruta to try and attack them right when he picks up the sword. As the Haruta player, you can somewhat circumvent this issue by allowing the hand sword to slide around you. This messes up the opponent's timing by giving you more time to dodge the attack while you don't have the sword in your hand, instead of getting put into major end lag by picking up the sword and then getting punished by the opponent. One more thing to talk about in regards to recall. You can get a little bit of a jump boost whenever you pick up the sword. I don't know why this happens, and I don't know how many uses it might actually have, but take this information how you will. The next thing we're going to talk about now is Haruta's dodge. Haruta's dodge lets him get through any melee or projectile type attack. So while this does mean he can dodge most moves, he can't dodge things like Mechamaru's 3 or Megami's 3. Aside from the obvious of just getting iframes and dodging the attack that hits you, you also get a miracle afterwards, which I'll talk about more after we're done going through all of his moves. The dodge iframes on Haruta are extremely unforgiving. If you remember, I talked about how the dodge iframes, they're shorter than the startup for an M1. So you can really imagine how quick you have to be and how fast you have to react to actually hit your dodges. If you do manage to dodge an attack, I recommend you just dash out of the way right away. But there's a really weird quirk going on with dodges right now that I'm 99% sure is a bug. It's true that when you dodge an attack, your dodge cooldown gets reset, but if you sort of perfect dodge an attack, as in right when the attack connects with you, you dodge, you'll see that the dodge outline you have, like the little visual effects that's there, the circle appears twice. If this happens, your dodge cooldown doesn't reset, and this is going to happen all the time, meaning you're kind of forced to just dash away. I don't think this is intentional and I hope this bug gets fixed, but until it does get fixed, you're going to have to play as if every dodge you get is going to be a perfect dodge, just to be 100% safe. A few more quirks in relation to dodging. M1ing in your sword on mode will place your sword off dodge on cooldown. This is extremely important to know. The cooldown for dodging is decently high, especially in relation to how vulnerable you are, with no available M1s or blocking. So if you do intend to quickly switch into your sword off mode while you're M1 trading, you're going to use it only to use your ankle cutter or your high time. If you want to quickly switch into your sword off mode to dodge an attack, you can't be M1ing before it. And the cooldown it places your dodge on, it's pretty sizable. It seemingly doesn't matter how long into the M1 animation you are, are, all that matters is that you've M1'd 1 or so seconds before you've entered your sword off mode. This is also super important to keep in mind, especially because dodging is going to be one of the most important assets that you need to learn to use effectively in Haruta's kit. You can get a lot of reward within your miracles and also make your opponent really mad if you use your dodges effectively. But you can also get punished really hard if you mess up. Learning how to most effectively utilize Haruta's sword off is going to be one of the most difficult things you learn with this character. And to be honest, it's probably one of the more difficult things you need to learn in this game in general. There's really not much room for error when you're dodging, especially with how honestly mediocre the miracle mechanic is for Haruta. Combined with Haruta's 70 HP, learning how to properly use your sword off is just going to be so important. The next thing to talk about is the thing that replaces your block in your sword off mode, and that's your taunt. When Haruta taunts, he's stuck in an animation for like 2 or so seconds, and near the end of the animation, he gains a miracle. This has to be targeted at an opponent, and you can't cancel it as a Haruta. If you're choosing a taunt, you have to commit. You also can't use this on ragdolled opponents. I'm sure you've heard most people say not very good things about this move, and they're completely right. You can still use it to gain a miracle off of a high time or an ankle cutter, simply by timing and waiting for the opponent to wake up from their ragdoll. But outside of that, there's no use for this move at all. It's slow, the reward isn't that great, and the most important part that's the biggest detriment to this move is that it takes over your F key. If you accidentally press F, perhaps on instinct, or maybe you thought you were going to pick up your sword and you were going to block, you hear that clown noise, it's so over. This move both taking over your F key and also being extremely punishable, especially with Haruta's extremely low HP, you can explode off of pressing F on accident. I see this all the time with new Harutas, especially people that aren't used to his sword off mode. You'll be pressuring them, they'll be expecting to pick up the sword, they mistime it, and now they've taunted and they've lost so much HP because of that. It's an extremely unfriendly move and probably the worst aspect of Haruta's kit. Now let's move on to his actual moves, and we'll start with Ankle Cutter. Ankle Cutter is easily one of Haruta's best moves. It deals 12 damage, it's basically unreactable, and it ragdolls for a really long amount of time. I said this before like way earlier in the video, but you're really going to be using this over ambush like 10 out of 10 times. This move just does way more. There's really not much to say about this move, it's extremely simple and just gets the job done. And most importantly, you can use this during stun. This means if the opponent is comboing you, you get a free combo break. And with the really high vertical range that this move has, it basically always catches a side dash. Your opponent basically can't avoid this move, they're always going to be hit by it. I guess some important things to add, it's 360 degree blockable and you can jump over the move too because it has a very low vertical hitbox. Just be aware of that low verticality when you're fighting maybe like a Yuki player who's using their Rising Rage and on the second hit they rise up above the ground, or maybe you're fighting a Yuta player who's using their Revolve. You wouldn't want to waste your Ankle Cutter there. But otherwise, this move is flawless. Let's move on to High Time next, and this move is basically just a strictly worse Ankle Cutter. It trades really strong horizontal range for ridiculously high vertical range. It also ragdolls for way longer. That's cool and all, but it kind of loses a lot of the functionality as a combo breaker. Oftentimes, the sword doesn't follow the opponent close enough to actually land that high time because of the low horizontal range it has. It still works as a combo breaker, but you have to be way more aware of the horizontal distance between you and the opponent. But it's still a good move. While Ankle Cutter is way better than Ambush, High Time isn't like always better than Backstab. Just one more thing before we move on to the next move. Using High Time on a dead body doesn't place it on cooldown. The final move to talk about in the Sword Off kit is going to be Dirty Trick. By pressing 4, Haruta calls back its sword, and while it's coming back, it has a hitbox attached to it. It deals 8 damage and ragdolls for a pretty short amount of time. And unlike the other sword off moves, this move can't be blocked from the front. But also, unlike the other sword moves, it can't be used during stun. Dirty Trick has a little bit of a startup to it, so if you get interrupted during that startup, the sword won't come back to you. So it's very important to stay aware of the distance between you and the opponent so that you don't get punished for it. But if you are playing well, Dirty Trick can really serve as a good way to relieve the pressure from the opponent. Once the sword starts coming back, it's pretty fast and it's uninterruptible at that point. So if the opponent hits you in the middle of your animation, they'll still get hit by the sword coming back. And if they do get hit by that, first of all, it's really tilting, and second of all, you get a full combo. You'll notice a trend with this character, he's so annoying to fight. They perfectly encapsulated Haruta from the show into this game. There's not much else to talk about Dirty Trick, though whenever you receive the sword, sometimes you can bug out, especially if you receive the sword while you're ragdolled. This is definitely something to do with the jump boost bug that I talked about earlier in the video, but I can't really find a way to use this effectively, so all that remains is just like a funny little bug. Alright then, we're done talking about the moves now. I know that was a lot to go through, but there's a lot to talk about with this character. And while we're done talking about the moves, there's still going to be one more thing we need to address, which is his miracle mechanic. Every time Haruta interrupts an opponent, dodges an attack, or uses a taunt, he'll gain one miracle. At the bottom of the screen, you'll see your miracle counts and you can get a maximum of 6 of them. Haruta can make use of these miracles by either using 3 of them to use an evasive, or by using them as a revive when he goes down to 0 HP. If he uses a revive, he goes back up to 10 HP. This is a pretty cool and unique mechanic, but the issue is, it's just bad. It's a very weak mechanic that really doesn't compensate for Haruta's low HP. The thing with miracles is that you'll really only feel their effect if you're already winning. If you're winning a fight, you're going to be constantly dodging attacks, you're going to be stacking up miracles from interrupting the opponent, maybe you'll use a taunt or so. And from there, you can use more evasives to evasive punish the opponent, especially because the opponent can't use any risky combo options if they know you have 6 miracles available. That's 2 extra evasives. Having 2 extra evasives to burn also means you can do more prediction-based evasive punishes. For example, Choso's supernova isn't punishable on reaction, but the actual animation for throwing out the supernova is pretty noticeable and it doesn't have an active hitbox. That means you can predict when the opponent will use their supernova and get a full punish off of them. You can do something very similar with Akari's reserve balls too, and you can do this with many other classically unpunishable ranged moves, like Gojo's red. But on the flip side, defensively, miracles are really weak. No matter what situation you're in, it's always better to use an evasive miracle instead, or if it's available to you. When the miracle heals take you to 10 HP, you're still being comboed. Most, if not every character in the game, can kill Haruta through his miracle. So if you're on low HP and you have 3 miracles available, you might as well have 0. And the situation happens all the time because Haruta's HP is naturally low. Characters after wasting your evasive are gonna be doing around 60 damage or something in a combo. And at 10 HP, that miracle is fake. You might as well not have it. Really and truly, it feels so bad when you're at low HP and you can see your HP going down to 0 and you know it's gonna waste your miracles and take away your opportunity to evasive. Now, you hear me whining, you hear me complaining about this, but do I think this should change? Absolutely not. I'm kinda happy that the miracle mechanic is kinda weak, cause this would be the most annoying rat character to play against. I mean, he already is, but if he got some type of miracle buff, yeah, there's no way. So while I do think the miracle mechanic is pretty weak, I think it's fine to be weak, I don't mind it being weak, and I prefer that it stay weak. Haruta is so easy to put down that people don't want to play this character, which is good for me, because it means I don't run into this character. So while miracles are weak, let them stay weak. One final thing to mention, Yuta's Resolute Slash will just kill Haruta through his miracles. I don't know why this happens, but just add that to the list of so many moves that just kill Haruta through his miracles. Before we start with the ranked matches, there's this really important bug that I've only remembered to mention now, where for whatever reason, entering your sword off mode will kinda hide your cooldowns. It's a really annoying glitch that can happen basically whenever, and I don't understand what procs it. It can really mess up your flow of the match whenever you go to press a move that's off cooldown, but you realize it doesn't come out. And this only happens in sword off mode, where you really need the most defensive options and you need to be aware of everything you have available. Going up to someone in sword off mode and pressing your 3 and nothing comes out and they just M1 you back, that feels bad. So I just want to bring attention to this bug because it's really important to know about. First ranked match is up against Analia. Genuinely, from the deepest part of my soul, I despise this character. Every single ranked match is a Naoya player. They all play Naoya, and he's not even good. The most annoying character they've ever concocted in this game. I know I said Haruta was the most annoying, but it's Naoya. I blame Naoya. From day one, I clocked that shit. I knew that double dash would be the most annoying shit I've ever seen in a game. I don't really like nerfing characters in this game, but if they want to just break Naoya's legs for me, I'm begging you, Z, go ahead and do that. You have my blessing. Go ahead and do it. Let's move on though. Let's talk about the match. And right away, cheap shot brings that value. He tried dashing in, the cheap shot sniped him on the way in. Beautiful move, and I remained relatively safe. And like I said before, people like to pick a playstyle how they play against the sword. This guy decided to turtle up and be defensive, hit him with the trip. Bam! Then we get the taunt off the high time and we move on. Just waiting for the front dash in as a Naoya, that's a classic. That's all they know how to do, that's the only thing they can do as a Naoya, and I don't blame them because Naoya's trash, but I do blame them anyway, fuck them. Sorry for talking about Naoya so much, I just hate this character. On with the match. Look at that beautiful ankle cutter. He was holding space, but the hand sword caught him on the way down. If you're facing a Haruta player, I actually don't think it's a bad idea to spam space. Makes it so Haruta has to time the ankle sword a little better. First stock done. Wasn't really much to mention there. Here you can see I use cheap shot right away like I normally do, but then the hand sword, I aim it at the opponent, but it kind of glides towards the spawn for some reason. That's just a weird like issue with how, not really an issue, but it's just a quirk with how the hand sword moves. You can see it negatively affected me there, but right after this, I actually utilized the slidiness of the hand sword in order to prepare for a potential front dash M1, because what I'm expecting him to do is front dash in and M1 me, so I'm sliding around the hand sword around me so that I still have my dodge available and not in the end lag for picking up the hand sword. Hope that makes sense. Look at this character, bro. He pressed that 3, he smashed that 3 times in the opposite direction of me. This dirty ass character. You can see what I'm talking about with high time there. The hand sword didn't creep close enough to actually hit the opponent, even though the hand sword was standing still. It's kind of annoying sometimes, but whatever, we move. Look at how garbage the iframes on that move are. Hitbox didn't even come out, I just smacked him out of the move. Yeah, this character is never CMB tier. Both high time and ankle cutter providing me so much value there. Round of applause for both of these titans of moves, you just can't go wrong with them. Also, fuck this guy. Eat this ult. Okay, yeah. After he eats this ult, it's basically over. Let's just skip to the end and let's go to the next match. Next match is against a Yuta. I already fought this guy a few times before, and I know he likes to ult, so I'm getting ready to try and blitz him. At the end of the day, a base only ult is just not winning against a regular ult. So, let's get started. Beautiful first sequence there. That last uppercut to Taunt was actually a new thing that I just tried right now to see if it was safe or not. It looks like it worked out. Probably never doing it again though. I messed up the backstab because I'm terrible. I messed up the uppercut trip because I'm terrible. But I take the stock anyway because I'm the greatest of all time. I'm joking, but the next stock starts and I get the backstab M1 reset off. I'm just gonna spoil it right now. You saw in that last match, I didn't use ambush once, and in this match, I'm not gonna use ambush again. So you can really see how the priority of ambush compared to backstab, it's really just not the same. It's not weighted equally at all. Don't even look at me about this whip, I'm ashamed. He hands me a combo though, and I don't waste it. I use 2 dashes in that combo there. You can see it's possible. I got 6 miracles on me. There's no sense in saving my evasives. Speaking of, I might have forgot to mention this during the guide section of this video, but using a miracle evasive will reset your evasive gauge. Then I go for the ult. I get my 3 sets of M1s in, I'm about to go for my 4th, but I mistime it and he M1s me back. Luckily, I'm relatively high HP with 6 miracles on me, so it's kind of over. Ankle cutter once again, saving the day. Top 3 base move arguments. This is the 3rd and final ranked match, and it's against another Naoya. I probably didn't mention this enough, like I didn't emphasize this as much as I needed to in the guide section of this video, but your hand sword can really be impeded by debris. Like sometimes you just get stuck on the debris. It can be really annoying at times, especially if you don't have dirty trick available, because that can really sell you the match. Also, ranked has been lagging so bad recently, I don't know what's up with that. Okay, there wasn't much to say in that match, but it's still a good match anyway. That's the last ranked match I'm going to do for this video. Leave a like if you enjoyed, make sure to subscribe. This one took a long time for me to make. I should have released this like 2 weeks earlier, but ignore that though. Choso guide soon. Maybe. Possibly.